And we are back. Took a little week hiatus or so. But we are back with another episode of Civil Discord, your weekly dose of radical curiosity. I am one of your hosts here in the People's Republic of Texas that I guess we know how to drive in the state of Texas. Maurice Jones, a.k.a. the Notorious BLG. And if you don't know what that means, it's the Notorious Black Liberty Guy. Was coined that in a Patreon group, and it was pretty awesome. But with me again here more often than I am, doing great things and coming back from a spring break, which means absolutely nothing when you were anything post bachelors. They mean absolutely nothing in the People's Republic of California. Amanda, how's it going?
It's going well. Yes, that is true. So post undergrad spring break, even like post lower division undergrad spring break really means nothing. It's pretty just you write and go to slightly fewer classes, and that is your spring break. Enjoy. But no, you had a little bit of spring break. You went to the Florida land.
I did. Yes, I did. So somebody in my family was getting hitched, and the person that they were getting hitched to was from Fort Lauderdale. And my wife and I decided to fly out to Fort Lauderdale and rent a Chevy Sonic. If anybody is ever looking into getting a Chevy Sonic and you are, let's say, taller than 5'6", I would encourage you not to.
Oh dear.
That was an awesome fiasco. But I mean, you can imagine this, a 6 foot, 210 pound guy sitting next to his wife in a Chevy Sonic, and it's so small that his wife uses the driver side armrest when she is the passenger.
Wow.
And so it was super tiny, but it was crazy. But we rented this Chevy Sonic, and we decided to drive around Fort Lauderdale. And I've determined that, but I was told that I was incorrect, because I was determined that people in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, are the worst drivers. And when I say worst drivers, a lot of people, they tend to exaggerate when they say, oh, we have the worst drivers just because like people are cutting you off and you're in a big city and this, that, and that. And I was like, it's like, yeah, because people in Texas do that. No biggie. I'm used to all that. What I'm not used to is people not using turn signals and cutting you off and then stopping in the middle of the interstate for about a good 30, 45 seconds. And then they turn their hazards on for about 2 seconds. And because they're like, oh man, I forgot to turn my hazards on. And because there is no shoulder, so they literally stop. And then they decide, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and put it in drive and take off. And then try to speed up past people who were passing them because they were stopped in the middle of the interstate. I don't know. My wife came to the realization that yes, people in Florida are all horrible drivers. They are the worst. But I was told that they are not the worst drivers, that there is another state that has worse drivers.
So there's sort of like a DMV trifecta of bad driving: DC, Maryland, Virginia. But bar none, the worst drivers in the United States are from Maryland. And I hate, normally I don't do stereotypes. I don't traffic, no pun intended, in stereotypes. However, I have never been wrong when there has been a bad driver, and I haven't looked at the license plate, driving in the Virginia, DC, Maryland vicinity, and there's just this little voice in the back of my head like, they're probably from Maryland. I'm like, no, I don't do stereotypes. Every single time it's 20 over or 20 under, and there's not any any distinction between the two. But so Northern Virginia drivers are bad. They're bad. DC drivers they're passive aggressive because the entire attitude of DC driving is that they're like really, really angry at you because the traffic laws suck, but they also don't want to get in trouble. So because again, there does make no sense. The traffic laws make no sense. Maryland drivers just have no sense to them whatsoever. Even people from Maryland will concede that Maryland drivers are the absolute worst. And so, I mean, I believe you that Florida drivers are bad, but they can't compete with Maryland drivers. All out.
That's one of those things of like, should I experience this driving or should I not, and just take your word for it?
Like I mean, it's worth it. Just to, it's like when you're in school and the kids like make the most disgusting concoctions at lunch and everyone wants to try it. That's sort of like driving in Maryland, basically.
Right. Almost like you know, when you see the accident and it's happening, you gotta turn and look away, but you're just like, I just got to experience this. Like, this is
Exactly.
just, it's one of those, man, this tastes so bad, you should try it.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Is it a Geico commercial? I think it's that Geico commercial with the raccoons. And they're like, dude, man, this tastes horrible. Try some. And he's like, why would I try it when it tastes horrible? He's like, no, you got to try it. It just tastes that bad. But yeah, so I will, I think at some point I will have to experience the Maryland driving. It may, I don't know. I have blood pressure issues, so it may not be the best for my health to drive and experience that. But you know, I may, you know what I can do? I will just take an Uber somewhere in Maryland. And that way I can sit in the back and brace myself, but not have to deal with the blood pressure of hey, you know what? These people are crazy. So
you'll at least observe it. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is awesome. So people, if you're driving to Maryland and you listen to this in Maryland, you are probably one of the people who we're talking about.
Yeah.
And no offense, but take offense.
I'm not sorry.
Be a better driver. Yes, I'm not sorry either. Be a better driver. Same people in Florida. If you were anybody in that Fort Lauderdale area driving on I-95, I'm not sorry. You guys are horrible drivers. And yeah, so learn how to drive. Use a turn signal every once in a while. I mean, there was one guy who we talked to he's actually the planner of the wedding. He said he was driving. His aunt was teaching him to drive, and he used his turn signal. And his aunt got mad at him for using his turn signal. And I was just like,
I can excuse not using a turn signal when there's not a need to use a turn signal. You're making a right-hand turn, a right-hand lane. That's one thing, right? So, I mean, it's situationally contingent.
Of course,
of course. I know bad drivers because I'm a woman, and Maryland drivers are very bad, even the men.
Yeah, these people change lanes without a signal, without any sort of turn signal, and I mean, they just come out of nowhere. They're driving a certain speed. And they just mosey on over, and you're just like, oh, I guess I'm supposed to stop because I guess you don't see me here. Now, granted, we were in a Chevy Sonic, which, again, couldn't be longer than 5 feet long. But maybe they didn't see us. Maybe they did. Still doesn't excuse. They were horrible drivers. It just is what it is. So, but yeah, sorry. Whew. That was a lot. But spring break was great. It was great for me. Very relaxing. Because I'm a teacher, so I got the whole week off.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't have to deal with anything. I told my students, said, hey, you better turn in all your work before spring break because once Friday at 2:55 hits, I am not thinking about anything related to school. So don't ask me to grade anything over spring break. Don't say, hey, coach, I got to turn this stuff in so I make sure I pass your class. Nope. Giving you every opportunity to do it. So it was somewhat relaxing. We were busy, but relaxing nonetheless. So it is all gravy. But speaking of breaks and DC, there is something that is happening somewhere on Capitol Hill. If you were sleeping under a rock like I am, then you may barely know of this lady who is Ketanji Brown Jackson, who is the first Black woman to be nominated for the Supreme Court. And I would assume that she is going to be confirmed. I mean, even though it is 50-50, I'm just assuming she's going to be confirmed. But anyway, just because this is all for show. And according to, I would say, experts, she is the most highly qualified person for this job ever in American history. I don't know if that is entirely true, mainly because I don't know of anybody I don't know of everybody's previous experience prior to being put on the Supreme Court and so forth. But I believe it has something to do with the fact that maybe she's Black and she's a woman. Don't know if that's the reason why they're using all of those. Possibly the case. And then Joy, the great Joy from The View, Behar, literally said that she is the most perfect person for a role in political office, which it shouldn't be a political office, let's be real, but most perfect person for this role since Barack Obama. Now, I don't know what anybody thinks about Barack Obama and that being the case, but I'm going to assume, since most of our listeners probably subscribe to my beliefs or Amanda's beliefs or somewhat right, Barack Obama was not a perfect person. Matter of fact, a lot of people believe that he was a war criminal. I may be one of those people. I'm not going to say maybe. I am one of those people. So Barack Obama was not necessarily perfect. He may have looked the part. He looked perfect. He did. Nice, well-kept black man.
Whoa. Now you're sounding a little bit racist. Are you saying that he's clean and articulate?
100%. Sure is.
That's racist, I've been told.
That's what Joe Biden said. If Joe Biden said it, then I can say it. If Joe Biden says it, then I can say it. But yeah, so all that to say, I'm going to call her KBJ. KBJ is going through the confirmation hearings, which are an utter crap show, for a lack of better terms, discussing books and things of that nature. But it is what it is. But Amanda, what are your thoughts on this? On what's all happening and going down?
It's very interesting because I think some of our listeners may know this, that the first Black woman who was nominated to the Supreme Court was in fact blocked and filibustered by Joe Biden. That was that is the claim. Now the reality is that there have been several Black women nominated to the DC Circuit Court, and the DC Circuit Court is seen as the gateway to the Supreme Court, and there have been several times that Republicans have nominated Black women to the DC Circuit Court, and those have been filibustered.
I believe it.
Yes. So, and again, there's, I have been told that the filibuster is racist, and that anyone who uses it is using a relic of Jim Crow. So Democrats evidently use this relic of Jim Crow to block DC Circuit Court justices like Janice Rogers Brown, who just happen to be Republicans. So that was a little interesting take. Yeah. That we could have potentially had a Black female justice earlier, if not for this wonderful thing called the filibuster. But I, in fact,
that's racist.
The filibuster.
It keeps Black people. It's only racist when Republicans doing it.
Exactly. Only when Republicans do it. Exactly. So I did watch much of the judge, I was going to say Janice Rogers Brown because this was the Black female justice who was nominated. I didn't watch Janice Rogers Brown's nomination hearing because they were filibustered. I did watch the Judge Jackson's hearings, and it's very funny to me because really when I watch the Senate Judiciary Committee, I basically watch it for Ben Sass. I have a problematic relationship with Ben Sass. So I when I identified as a Republican, I totally adored him, and then I moved on from Republicanism, and sometimes he tries to win me back. And Supreme Court hearings are times like those when I get to see Ben Sass ask nominees to perform original Schoolhouse Rock numbers and basically just like play civics class. This is my jam. Ben Sass was one of the very few members of that committee that asked any relevant questions whatsoever.
Yeah, of course.
People have played clips from conservatives asking wacky questions. Liberals didn't really ask any questions. They mostly delivered monologues about how great she was, especially Cory Booker, who is just amazing at off the cuff, inspiring, uplifting rhetoric. Evidently, what I hear is that he's also he's also a bit disingenuous with all that, but he's a fantastic actor.
I completely forgot that he existed. I'm not going to lie to you. I forgot that he ran for president 2 years ago.
He did.
I completely forgot that he existed. I was like, when you brought it, I was like, oh my gosh, that guy. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, see, most people who are disingenuous, they are disingenuous in the way that they will deliver pre-written remarks. But Cory Booker has something special going on where he's able to just kind of it seems that he's improving off the cuff. And again, he seems like this very, very genuine boy. He's got this boyish demeanor to him. He's not Ted Cruz who gets a staffer to write about how great Bitcoin is. He's just he's leading a gospel session up there. So he was was fun to watch. Ben Sasse was especially fun to watch because of the low-key shade that he threw on other Republicans, such as Ted Cruz, who at least used to be his former housemate. I don't know if he still is. I really enjoy the odd couple scenarios that play in my head when I think about Ben Sasse and Ted Cruz living together. But yeah, so he was talking about how there are all kinds of jackwagons on the, in Congress. The word jackwagon needs to be brought into the national discourse more, along 100%. With Schoolhouse Rock, Ben.
Yes.
But after Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and all of this had said their piece, or at least part of it, Ben Sasse then turns to asking Judge Jackson about cameras in the Supreme Court, because there have been some calls for Supreme Court hearings to be televised as well as recorded in audio. And this is right after Ted Cruz has just gone off. And he says, you see how in hearings like these, we have all this jackassery that goes, it was either jackassery or assholery. The word ass was definitely used. I felt it was clear that he was referring to his Republican cohort, and in particular because I think he was the only Republican who did not sign the letter requesting pre-sentencing data related to Judge Jackson's apparently lenient sentences on child pornography offenders. There was a request for pre-sentencing data that would have disclosed information about some of the victims. And so the issue was, we want to protect their privacy, and this has never been done before. And Ben Sasse, to his credit, is the only person who did not sign that letter and proceeded with basically the only relevant line of questioning in the hearing, which was, what is your judicial philosophy, which he also could not answer, in which Democrats suddenly decided that they didn't care about judicial philosophy after spending all of these previous nominations grilling nominees, as they should, about judicial philosophy and talking about how concerning their judicial philosophy is. Of course, Ben Sasse has released a statement that he will not be voting to confirm Judge Jackson, which I'm not sure about the political optics of that, but at least it shows that he has principles. I just talked about Ben Sasse a lot, and I'm not sure if I'm okay with that. But I've said I had a problematic relationship with him.
It's all gravy. It's all gravy. At least there were some few that were asking, like you said, relevant questions. I think most of it, especially because of what we're going to talk about a little later in the show, but because a lot of that's going on, people are asking, like, hey, can you define what a woman is?
Yeah.
And it's all these things. And I will say, to her credit, she, Judge Jackson, her responses are very much like, hey, it is not my job to do this. Like, it's not my job to determine what this is or what this. That's Congress's job. That's y'all's job to do that. Go ahead.
Well, if there's a 14th Amendment case, though, then the question of what is a woman does become relevant, as you were going to get into.
True. Yes, for sure. But I mean, and so she's able to answer those questions as I feel like most people should. Like, hey, look, like, it's not my job to do that. Like, because now, granted, I probably don't agree with her on a lot. Mainly because if she was nominated by the Democrats and nominated by the left, then she probably does a lot of things. And I will say this, I haven't looked into the whole child pornography cases and things of that nature or whatnot, but I tend to not like people who were in that specific realm. So if you tend to hurt those who were very small and not fully developed, then I tend to have issues with that. But nonetheless, I will say, like, a lot of her responses are, hey, like, this does not pertain to anything about this, which a lot of ACB did in her confirmation as well too, as far as her grilling from the Democrats of like, hey, like, I can't answer that question because that does not determine how I will do my job in that sense, because I don't write the laws. I interpret specific things, so forth, which is good. Which is, I would say, not what happened during Brett Kavanaugh. That was just an utter mess. And so this, I will say, this hasn't been as big of a mess as previous ones or whatnot, but there are times where, you can tell that these people who are sitting on these in these Senate confirmation hearings, as far as being these judges, are former lawyers and judges, because of how they're able to maneuver around questions and say things like, you know what, I can't say that because of this, or this may, I will, for lack of better term, I will use the word incriminate, but for towards this, and give true cause for pause for confirmation and so forth. But most of it, I'm like, okay, like, cool, yeah, like, it is what it is. On the TikToks, you get the people who would say, she can't define what a woman is, and then she's like, okay, yeah, you can't, but in some cases you would need to. Like, you will need to, because, I mean, hey, if we're talking about specific amendments that apply to specific people, then, maybe, I don't know, possibly, you may have to interpret some things.
A woman is someone who you have to believe. That's a woman. A woman is, because you have to believe all women. So a woman is someone who has to be believed. That is what a woman is.
Unless they've been touched by Joe Biden.
Yeah, about that. No, it's fine. Fine. But even the child pornography sentencing questions, it evinces Congress's lack of ability or willingness to actually take action, because the logic behind the lenient sentencing was that, there were sentencing recommendations that were passed by Congress, and these were passed by Congress before the advent of the internet. So they were passed by Congress with various gradations of, if you have this many images, we're recommending this much time. You have this many images, we're recommending this much time. But then when you get to the internet, you have that all escalates, 1,000-fold. You can have infinite images. So the idea was that, Judge Jackson's trying to establish gradations of severity using an outdated model that basically, where everything is gradations of, is the ultimate severity, just because of how easy it is to download child pornography now. The obvious argument of that is, well, fine. It's always very, very, very severe. But the fact is that Congress neglected to address those sentencing recommendations. Right. And this wouldn't have happened if you had a consensus about, okay, we've got computers now, we've got the internet now, how do we titrate sentencing in light of that?
Right.
Didn't happen.
So, no, of course, because who expects the U.S. government to get any better? It does nothing but get worse, in my opinion. And it is what it is.
Well, and then, of course, lawmaking gets outsourced to the courts, and that's a problem, because these are unelected lifetime appointees. Exactly.
Then you wind up with people who sit on these spots forever and a day, and then turn around, and their interpretation of specific laws now becomes law, and people speak on that like that is the law, and then it turns into this whole hodgepodge of things that the founding fathers did not build it that way. Since a lot of people go back to the founding fathers, they didn't build it that way. They didn't say, hey, the judicial branch is allowed to make laws. That's not what they said. Not at all. Matter of fact, they didn't even talk about anything about judicial review. Oh, that came after the Constitution. Well, whew. All right. But it is what it is. This is the government that we live in, and that I have chosen. I guess I put quotes around that. I have chosen to be a part of as far as living my life under. I live under this thumb than some other country's thumb, which it is what it is. But Amanda was talking about internets and downloading things and all of that craziness. as far as child pornography and so forth. But there was somebody else who dabbled in a few things on the internet and had his stuff. I'm not going to say stolen. Left his laptop at a computer repair shop, and originally, about I'd say 18 months ago, it was very much stated to be Russia disinformation.
You wouldn't have, was it 18 months ago? Was it? I mean, yes, you're right, because it was a year and not quite a year and a half. I have no concept of time when it comes to political news. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was right around, because I remember it was right around going into the third debate. And because we had missed the second debate because Trump tested positive for COVID and so forth. But yeah, it was Russia disinformation, Hunter Biden's laptop, it was stolen and everybody, to the point to where everybody shut this thing down except for the New York Post. And they had the New York Post, their Twitter account was suspended for, was it 24 hours or so?
I think it was 24, 48, yeah.
Yeah, was suspended because they were the ones to report this Russia disinformation. And everybody put it off, Russia disinformation. Google put it off. If you talked about it on your YouTubes and so forth, your channel got flagged. You gotta an X or whatever they're called. And all of these things happen because you talk about Hunter Biden's laptop and Russia disinformation. Well, as I like to say, oh so often, I guess I was right. Here we are again. I was right. And I know we weren't really talking about this because Amanda and I didn't have a podcast at that particular point in time. But I was right again. Again, I don't know why people doubt me. I will steal the words from Jason Stapleton and say it once, I'll say it a million times. Don't doubt me. Don't know why people do. This was not Russia disinformation. New York Times came out and said, hey, this wasn't Russia disinformation. This is actually very true. This is Hunter Biden's laptop. Oh, go figure. Go figure.
It's so initially, right, the line was, well, this is a private individual and this was stolen property. And so we can't, we can't verify that this belongs to this person. And we're not going to, because this is a private individual. This is a very selective application of this is a private individual. Therefore, if you report on a private individual, we won't allow you to post it rule. And I have never even heard of that guy before. So that was odd. And, we're not saying anything that people don't already know. But this is what happens when you assume a couple different things. You assume that either, and maybe this is both and, the people who listen to you as a media outlet agree with you anyhow and don't care whether what you're saying is true or false, which is really, I keep thinking of Russian state media with this, where it's obvious that there are so many lies that are told, and everyone knows that there are lies, and they just don't care because this is how information works there. So this is what happens when you believe that the people who do listen to you agree with you anyhow and are going to let you say whatever. And simultaneously, you don't trust the public at large. So the idea behind all of this was, well, if we say that this laptop was legit, then maybe people will, they'll get the wrong idea. And we've seen this time and time again also with COVID news and vaccine news and things like that, where there's disinformation, and then there's a grain of truth to that disinformation. And it would be much more helpful if there was an analysis and an acknowledgement of, okay, here's what's true about this. Here's how it's getting spun. That is what's going to help instill faith in your institutions, not just sweeping it all under the rug and saying it's Russian disinformation. That itself is sort of a Russian disinformation. I almost feel bad for Russia because they can't claim that things are Russian disinformation. And I applaud the fact that they've been able to do so well with media manipulation while not being able to default to the it's Russian disinformation line.
Right.
It's admirable. That's going to get pulled out of context, me applauding the Russian media.
I know, right? Right? Just wait. And it's so, I think one of the big things is for me, it's frustrating that nobody is going to care. It's this, them coming out and admitting, hey, yeah, you know what, we were wrong, is not going to be nearly as big of a story as it should be with the people who actually read the New York Times. It is not going to be, and maybe this is me and my black pill as far as understand of like, I think that there is no hope for a lot of things that happen. I just like nobody at the New York Times is going to be held accountable for any of this. Nobody in America is really going to hold the people who read the New York Times. They are not going to put the New York Times feet to the fire when it comes to this and say, hey, if this is coming out later as this is actually true and you guys were telling us that it wasn't true, then what were you doing during that time of your journalistic investigation? Like, you can't just come out and say something is bad because it opposes what you believe. Like, it just shows that we have very few real journalists in America who are really to dive in and find stories, whether or not they are, and come out and admit whether they're true or not. This makes me want to, and I won't, but support Project Veritas so many more ways because of the things that they do, because like at least they're willing to like go in and granted that they are very right leaning, but they're right leaning and what they're looking for, and they don't hide it at all. The New York Times will come out and say, oh no, we're not left leaning. We're very, we just report the news. And Project Veritas is like, nah, man, we lean right. We support Trump. Like we're going to get down and nitty gritty and do all that stuff. And so it's frustrating because we have very few real journalists in America now to be able to parse through all of this information that we get. And so now I would say it's my job to do all of that, even more so because I'm already a busy person. And so that's why I'm like, you know what? It's not even worth my time. I'll just, if it comes out to be a true story in the next year, it is what it is. And so it's frustrating because nobody's going to hold anybody's feet to the fire. Nobody's going to have any consequences for this. And it's just, and it could be a good thing. Maybe people just aren't looking at to New York Times or to all these big media outlets for news anymore. Maybe they are going to just podcasts and Joe Rogans of the world and the Steven Crowders. I don't know how big his platform is now, but I imagine it's probably still growing. And again, I'm not supporting any of these people, but it just shows that people are looking for smaller platforms to get their news and get their information, because they are at least people who are willing to admit that they're right or wrong in a situation, like the Tim Pools of the world. Hey, I got this wrong. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Or, Joe Rogan, like, hey, I'm just asking questions. I'm just here to ask the question and get the information because I don't know. And it's so maybe that is the good silver lining in all this. I'm not sure if that's the case, but hey, it is what it is.
It's so interesting that now the right wing, if you're conservative, you officially become the counterculture. The left have officially become, like, disinformation is the new obscenity. Okay, if you read the history of obscenity laws and like, you could replace obscenity with disinformation and it would fit perfectly. And what I hate most about this is that means that like the libertarians are the reasonable ones. I never wanted to be the reasonable one in the room. I wanted to be the fun, edgy one. I wanted to be the one who was, oh man, it's got her, crazy views on how we should end qualified immunity. That's so weird. And now I have to be the voice of I don't want that. I don't want that burden. I will give some unsolicited advice to both Project Veritas and the New York Times and other papers of record. Project Veritas, I have said for a while that what they need to do, because like sometimes they have good stuff, but there's sort of there's a stench of distrust, right? Because you think, oh, well, it's all right leaning. So Project Veritas, I recommend that they take a leaf out of the Koch book, and they have different names for your outlets. So Project Veritas diversify, have multiple media fact check, media accountability platforms, and have some of them be, accountability for the right wing in whatever way that Project Veritas feels comfortable. And that way you're not as easily able to trace back to Project Veritas. And in fact, other conservative, more right-leaning outlets, like Daily Caller, have done this with they're now a Facebook certified fact checker, and you wouldn't know that because it's called Check Your Fact or something like this. That's brilliant. So Project Veritas do the same thing, diversify, play the Koch game. So New York Times, this would be a wonderful moment for the New York Times to reacquire credibility, make it up, I don't care, but do an investigate, like a self-audit, New York Times. This is where we went wrong and why. You can make it up. You don't have to say it was because we were carrying water for this candidate. Say whatever you want. Blame it on whomever you want. You blame it on the American people if you want, but make it seem credible. Like we erred, we made a mistake. And this is our olive branch. This is our, this is our penitence or what have you.
Right.
I feel like that would work beautifully. And CNN has even done this on occasion. I love when Brian Stelter does this. And he's sort of doing like the fake policing of CNN with reliable sources and all of that. New York Times can do the same thing. So again, these are just tips. I offer them freely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got to come out, and you have to. It's got to be a you get out in front of it, not a hey, somebody caught us in this, so we've got to go back and make adjustments. Like that is the biggest thing. And before I feel like I'm about to get off in like the leadership coaching standpoints or whatnot, but in any sort of thing that you're dealing with in life, if you are wrong, it is better for you to get out in front of it and say, hey, you know what? I messed up. I dropped the ball. I fumbled the bag, whatever you got to say, in order to reach whoever you need to reach. That is the best way to go about it. It's not a good thing for you to get called out on it and then come back and apologize and say, oh, you know what? Yes, I'm really sorry for this, because it's like, no, because most people will say, no, you're just mad. You're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. Like there's a difference, And so I feel like if New York Times, Project Veritas, whoever else needs to come out and do that, that's the best way to go about doing this. And I know from observation experience and firsthand, like I there have been times where I was like, you know what? Yeah, it was better received when I came out and said, hey, you know what? I don't know if you guys have heard, but I messed up here. That's on me. I'm sorry. It's not my intention, and so forth. And they're like, oh, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for apologizing. You're still going to be in trouble, but not as severe as it would have been or whatnot. So it is what it is. But I need everybody to do this for me, okay? I need everybody close your eyes for a minute. If you're driving, don't close your eyes. Pretend like your eyes are closed. Close your eyes and picture this. You have a fairly skilled basketball player. It's March Madness. We'll go basketball player. Fairly skilled basketball player playing collegiate basketball. Okay. fairly skilled. For some reason or another, they get kicked out of their specific league. Okay, specific league. Then they turn around and say, you know what? I can just change my hair a little bit, change my mantra a little bit, and go through a specific change, and I can play for the women's team. Okay? And then I can go and lead my team to victory in whatever championship that they're in. Okay? Now you may be thinking now open your eyes, you may be thinking to yourself, Maurice, you just described the movie plot. You know what? Because I did. It's called Joanna Man. All right. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go watch that movie, because what is happening today is it's very similar. I'm not going to say it's eye for eye, because at least in Joanna Man, the main character was like a legit basketball guy who was like starring in his league. And so then he made the transition. Okay. But there is a person who goes by the name Leah Thomas. I don't know if some of you guys, if most of us don't live in the rocks, because if I know about it, then you know about it. Who is the woman's, who was like an NCAA champion in two different events in swimming. Okay.
And she has lost a couple, by the way. She's won, and then she's recently lost a couple. Yeah.
She's lost like specific heats and so forth. Okay. Because that's what I'll say. Like, and it is one thing or another. She's lost. Okay. But she wins when it matters. And she recently, a few years ago, was a he who was competing collegiately. Now, granted, I don't know the whole story as to why the transition happened. Okay. I am not going to sit here and say that she wanted to dominate women's sports, so that's why the change was made. It's probably not the case. Okay. If it is, then that makes it even worse. But to go from a mediocre at best male athlete to now winning the women's collegiate championship in swimming says something. And I agree. And I'm going to tell you this, there are a lot of people who are up in arms, and I'm not going to be up in arms or whatnot, but I have some issues with it as well, because not only Leah Thomas, but oh my gosh, I cannot remember her name. She just won Woman of the Year.
Oh, Rachel Levine.
Yes. Just one and Woman of the Year. And there are jokes going around, and I think it is funny. I 100% think it is funny because it's a comedy, and I feel like Dave Chappelle should talk about it because anything that is serious, he can make a joke out of and make light of. But you have two people who were formerly men, transition, and now they're beating women in specific things that were set apart for just women. And the joke is, men are better at being women than women are. Like, I mean, you got a Woman of the Year. Who was it? Caitlyn Jenner a few years ago. Same thing. And so now you've got all these things. And Leah Thomas is not the first. There are two high school track stars that were in Connecticut that a few years ago that they were in high school as males, transitioned to females, and won the state championship and broke records based off of what they were doing. And I saw a post on Instagram, and somebody was defending this, and I get people will defend, and they said, well, her time wasn't even the fastest in college ever. The fastest time, it was 9 seconds off of Katie Ledecky. If anybody knows swimming, Katie Ledecky is arguably the best women's swimmer ever, like, period, ever. And for a collegiate male to be 9 seconds off of that says something. Like, it just does. There's a lot going on here, and it's super frustrating. And people want to act like this is not a big deal. But I will say that it is. It is. And this should have, I was watching something earlier, and it talked about how this issue should have been addressed a long time ago when we were in the midst of this culture war, when we're talking about, hey, how people feel and so forth, and being able to say, like, no, at some point you have to stop with this, being able to embrace everybody, and everybody can compete against everybody, and it's okay, and there is no difference between male and female, and all this stuff, and a woman is equal to a male, and like, when you do all of that, you come into you start to think, well, biologically, if we're all equal, then there is no difference. But I hate to inform you that my wife and I are not the same. She was a power lifter in high school, but I guarantee you, if she was a power lifter in high school, I would still outlift her. I would. And I would have won state and all of that. And I'm just an average lifter. Like, I'm not a big lifter. I wouldn't consider myself to be very strong when it comes to those things. But if I was in high school, I guarantee I would have beat every single one of those girls who were in that thing. And that is super frustrating, especially somebody who is fully developed, all their muscles and all that stuff. It's crazy. Sorry for my tirade.
No, it's fine. I wanted to give you your time, because this is an interesting issue. People have all kinds of different takes on it. And for me, I am probably not as incensed about these two particular stories as most people are. I do find it quite funny, I have to say. I do find it quite funny that the same people who were calling leftists snowflakes for various random crap that Donald Trump said are, for overreacting to it, are the same people now who are having an absolute fit because USA Today called Rachel Levine a woman. You guys, it's language. People use language. People have experiences in the use of language, as Nancy Pelosi says, and we need to accept people's experiences in the use of language. Now, for me, I have a solution to all of this, and that is this. My proposal is that we get rid of gender designations in sports entirely. We separate the leagues by whether you use the bathroom, whether you urinate standing up or sitting down. Gender has nothing to do with it. It's going to be the I urinate standing up league and the I urinate sitting down league. That's it. We're not bringing gender into the picture at all. And frankly, I think we should also distinguish bathrooms this way, because that makes a lot of sense. Do you standing up or sitting down? That's a big change. It's not about gender.
This may be TMI for people, but sometimes when it's dark and I have to go to the restroom and I don't feel like turning on the lights because I get up at 3:00 in the morning and I got to let loose, sometimes I sit down.
I've heard men say that. Hey. I've heard men say, I have to be honest with you, I would never do that if I were a guy. Like, I would always make it into a game. I would. Like, I've heard that they put little targets on the urinals, like in high schools, because guys, they love to aim at things. I would do that at home. I would do it. And I would have little points too. I would get really into it, is what I'm saying. Exactly.
But yeah, no. Go. I just find that funny. I mean, because there are times where, because I am married and I don't want to have to clean it up, and I don't want my wife to walk in and sit on a seat that has my urine on it and smell it, and then she gets mad at me, and then it causes a fight. And so I was like, just to do this, it's dark. I'll just sit down and go. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say what I recently found out, and so this is where it gets sketchy for me. This is where it gets sus. Okay, this is where I'm like, make up your mind, because Leah Thomas is competing as a woman in the women's division, fine, but she's also competing. Last I checked, there is a transgender swimmer, this time female to male, named Isaac Hennig, also competing in the same races. So, but by this logic, Isaac Hennig should be competing in the men's division. So that is what's strange to me. So, you choose one, or have a transgender division, which some people have suggested. And, occasionally people are like, well, that wouldn't get as much publicity or that wouldn't get as much attention, to which I reply, have you seen women's anything? Like, do you know about women's basketball? How many people watch women's basketball?
Yours truly. I actually do. But...
Okay, well, you are one of the rare ones. Women's basketball, I get. Like, women's hockey. I love hockey. I play. I wouldn't watch myself play hockey.
Yeah, no, I don't. There are, and I remember I used to get a lot of flack for this, but there are 3 women's sports that I will watch. I will watch softball and volleyball. Those sports are actually pretty fast, and so it's easy for me to enjoy it. And I will watch women's basketball, just because they are very skilled at what they do. And so, do I enjoy it as much as watching men's basketball? No, not even close. Like it is, the game is not, women just don't run as fast. They don't run as fast. They're not as physical. It is difficult to watch. And if anybody tried to tell me that women do run fast, I will tell you, Maurice Jones, in high school, could literally run faster. Let me make sure. Let me pull this up because I want to make sure that I have this right. Women's 100-meter record. Yes, I'm gonna pull this up. 10:49. That is the women's 100-meter record. Okay. Maurice Jones, in high school, could run faster than a 10:49 in 100 meters. And that and I wasn't even close to winning a state championship in 100 meters. Like I could run faster than that. So that's why I say like things like this, women are not as fast as men. That's just, and this is an elite sprinters, and I wouldn't consider myself elite because I ran track in college, but like I wouldn't consider myself elite. Okay, so there are certain things that men just typically run faster. It makes it easier to watch. Nobody's watching the WNBA. I'm sorry, they just aren't. Like, WNBA has been losing money forever. People don't watch women's sports as they watch men's sports, and that's a statement of fact. It is very true. If I offend anybody, I'm not sorry, because that is a statement of fact.
Some sports, though, women's beach volleyball. I
feel like I will watch that all day. Yeah. Yes, it's beautiful.
Women's swimming too,
and it's fun. Yes, like anything that's Olympic wise, I 100% will watch it. Except for the hockey. The women's field hockey, I don't watch. Sorry. Women on hockey, ice hockey, I don't watch that either. We just had the Winter Olympics. Okay, sorry, I didn't watch it.
I'm a kick-ass goalie, I will have you know. Ice hockey goalie.
You're out there in the goalie?
I am a good goalie. No one ever believes that. I'm because it's about agility. It's because I can do the splits and stuff. So it's about being quick and then being able to jump around.
Okay, that makes sense. I will say this though: if they did a transgender category, so men and then women and then trans. Now, typically, it would have to be male to female, because female to male, they wouldn't be able to compete either. Like if I'm being honest, they just wouldn't be. They just told I think she was from South Africa, that she had from who was a female, that she had too much testosterone in levels in her thing, and she couldn't run.
And she wasn't trans. Granted, yeah.
Right. No, just a woman. She couldn't run, but then we got other stuff happening. And I think that to me is the bigger issue. Is a lot of this is we talk about, hey, women and men and how women should be equal to men and all this stuff and everything like that. But you are not allowing that to happen, because now you are allowing men who have had years of the muscle building and the testosterone in their system and so forth to compete and dominate against women who do not have that same advantage. And so it's frustrating to me, which is why that is what I would advocate for. Is if you want to do that, compete against people who are on the same level as you, who are making that same transition as you, and so forth. And granted, I'll be honest, I would probably watch it, especially when it comes to sprinting. I'd watch it. If it came to any sort of athletic ability related, I probably wouldn't watch swimming. I'm not gonna lie. Leah Thomas, I didn't watch any of that because outside of Olympics, I don't watch swimming. Like that's just men or women. Like Michael Phelps, the only reason why I followed him is because of the Olympics. Katie Ledecky, again, the Olympics. These are all things that are Olympic sports, so that's why I followed them. But I would watch it if you got a bunch of men who are transitioning to women who are athletic enough to play volleyball. I would probably watch it. Why? Because I enjoy the sport of volleyball. Like it has nothing to do with who's playing it. If it's played at a good level, then I will watch it. And I think that is most people who watch sports, that is their thing. They don't want us as fans. We don't want to see one person dominate as much as they have. So when there's parity in sports, people tend to watch it more. That's why people watch March Madness. That's why people watch playoffs, and that's it, because there's parity in it. That's why people NFL. That's why I think they have one of the best things. March Madness is the same way. So when it comes to those things, people will watch it. I think more people. You have more people on the left watching it than the right, because the right will be like, oh, well, I'm not watching that, and I just think that's it is what it is. But that is my solution. If you are taking something because you identify with something that you were not, if you identify with something that doesn't match your parts down below, then maybe you should have your own category. That's just how I look at it.
I think a lot of people would watch, maybe you could call it like open category, because you have like, the open, right? People would watch that because, first of all, you would feel good about yourself if you watched it. Like, I mean, you'd feel like a virtuous person. But there are many, many talented transgender athletes. And I think that people would watch that. People would watch that if they had their own league. And then you would get rid of the insanity coming from absolutely every single side. Because both camps here just tend to maximize the crazy, and they don't do their arguments any justice whatsoever.
100%.
Yeah.
And you could even set it up the way the NBA funds the WNBA. Like the WNBA loses money all the time, but they are funded by the NBA. So if let's say Nike, you are putting on these you put on like all of these specific track events every single year, whether it's the world championships or things of that nature, or just specific meets around the around the United States, because they do. I know a lot of people don't know this, but there are a lot of track meets that happen throughout the year. And so if Nike were to just say, hey, you know what, we're going to add our own division, then and they're able to fund it. They say, hey, if you want, if this is the category that this is, if you were anything, if you and I think they would probably get some backlash from the left, because it's like, oh, well, what if they don't, because you're telling people who identify as this that they can't compete with their own kind and so forth. But you could say, if you do not identify with whatever gender that you were associated with at birth, then you can compete in this specific category, and we will fund that for you. And then people get paid. And then you would have the situation in which everybody is happy. You get people who want to compete on a competitive level, who are transitioning, they get their category, they get the same medals, they get some recognition and so forth. You get your men's category, you get your women's category, and then you have your open category, and then everything is solved. Nike could fund it just like I said, like the NBA funds the WNBA. The NFL is coming up with like a minor league, the USFL. Okay, they are funding the USFL. It happens across all sports. Every single thing that happens. NCAA does it very, very well. Like people don't think that the NCAA women's basketball is, not nearly enough people watch that, but the men's side funds a lot of that. So like it happens everywhere. MLB funds their minor leagues and so forth. Like it's possible. it is very much possible. We've seen it happen before. So I don't understand why people do not want to do it again. That would solve all problems. That would have people on the right happy, people on the left would be somewhat happy, and then you would have everybody being able to compete at whatever level they want to compete.
I mean, I think at the sponsorships alone would be fantastic. There's no corporation there's no major corporation that wouldn't sponsor this. It's incredible,
especially in today's day and age.
This is a very lucrative opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, you got Home Depot, who is typically, and I'm just going to go out here on a limb, okay, and say most people who shop at Home Depot are probably people who typically lean on the right or whatnot. I'm just throwing that up because those are typically your home improvement DIYers, construction work. I'm just saying. That's my educated guess. I don't know the facts on that, but I would assume. Okay, you know what assuming does. But you have Home Depot coming out talking about privilege and talking about how we need to, how you have your Home Depot privilege, and then you have your class privilege and all these things, and they're educating people on this, their employees. So they 100% would love to be at the forefront of this and say, you know what, let us sponsor a track meet or a swim meet or whatever the case may be for people who are transitioning and have it an open thing. And I guarantee everybody would eat it up. They would eat it up. You'd have people on the left saying, oh, you know what? I'm going to shop at Home Depot now. I'm going to buy all my plants from Home Depot instead of Home and Garden or whatever the case may be. Like, that's what you would do. I don't know. I mean, Amanda, you're more of the left expert living out there in the People's Republic of California. Do you guys have a lot of Home Depots out there? I don't know.
We don't.
I'm just saying, I don't know. See?
I haven't seen a Home Depot, although I don't usually look for Home Depots. It's not, you're not scoping the Home Depot, saying like, where is it? I feel so sad because now Ben Shapiro will have to buy his wood elsewhere. Do you remember this was a few years ago? The Home Depot refused to take a stand on some issue because they're like, sir, this is a Home Depot. We sell wood here. And Ben Shapiro got really excited about the fact that Home Depot was like the Switzerland of stores and just was not taking his side. And he posted this video of himself holding a 2x4. He needed one piece of wood, did Ben Shapiro. And he's talking about how great, he's got a t-shirt on. He's talking about how great Home Depot is. And I'm so sad because where will Ben Shapiro buy his wood? I also want to make a comment about one of the types of privilege in the Home Depot flyer. Now, again, this wasn't sent out by all Home Depots. This was a Home Depot in Canada.
Just one store.
And so we know, Home Depot in Canada did this. Let that sink in. But one of the types of privileges that were discussed was Christian privilege, and the explanation for what Christian privilege is if you have never had to ask your employer for or explain to your employer that you have a holiday coming up and ask for time off. So then you have Christian privilege. Okay. So here's why I know that the two that Judaism and Christianity are not the only two religions in the world. However, the reason that I take time off I have to request time off or say that I'm going to take time off every year is because I'm on a different calendar than the Gregorian calendar. It's not it's not, this is always Purim, okay? Every single year you mark the calendar on this Gregorian day, and it's always, no, it changes. Yom Kippur isn't the same Gregorian day every year. So I have to say, hey, Yom Kippur is coming up. I'm going to be offline. This is not rocket science. Also, there are a lot more holidays that require time off in certain religions compared to others. You got they're the two major holidays that people think of when they think of Christianity and the needing to take time off are Christmas and Easter. One of those is on a Sunday. So
and you get the Friday off. So you're not requesting time
So that's that I felt microaggressed when it was implied that employers should automatically know because just they should know, they should see on the calendar that it's Rosh Hashanah, that it's Yom Kippur, but it's a different day every year. It's every Gregorian year.
I guess I don't have Christian privilege, even though I am a Christian, because I take off for Passover.
Yeah.
I take off for, Feast of Harvest, Feast of Tabernacles, and those technically are not Christian holidays, but I take off for those and I celebrate those. Hey, so I guess I don't have Christian privilege according to Home Depot.
You do not have Christian privilege.
Score 1 for Maurice. Got it. But yes, that is Home Depot. And can you really imagine Ben Shapiro actually building something?
What would he build?
I look at him. I was like, there's no reason why you should literally be in Home Depot. That's just as bad. That is the whole, you're just putting on a show. Like, hey, here you go, kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe he'll go to his local lumber yard, because they got some of those in Nashville. Or Lowe's.
It was one piece of wood. What do you need one piece of wood for? And it was even in a little bag. It was only a little bag.
Oh my gosh. That's how you know the man don't shop at Home Depot.
Well, he can't anymore.
Sorry. Well, I'm sure Home Depot is pretty much Ben Shapiro doesn't shop here anyway. We could afford to lose him. So
maybe he's building a balance beam. Maybe he's going to compete in women's gymnastics.
But even on a balance beam, you need something thicker than a 2x4.
Maybe he's really agile. We could all be made fools tomorrow if he comes out.
He got to be weighing less than my niece, who is 4 years old, and I mean, she's a hoss, but yeah, because them 2x4s ain't gonna support nobody when they're just 2x4 by 96s. They ain't gonna support anybody. So it is what it is. But that brings us to the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you guys for listening to us rant about Home Depot and Ben Shapiro and how he probably doesn't build anything, and how we could solve all of this transgender issues as far as competition and whatnot. If you like all of that, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Music. Sorry, my mind is everywhere. On Apple Podcast. Exactly. On Apple Podcast. And subscribe, follow us on Spotify or wherever you catch your podcast. Leave us that rating and review. Please share the show with a friend or a family member or anybody who you feel like needs to hear this, whether it's your mom, your dad, your uncle, your cousin, and so forth. Share, and share some more. And then follow us on all forms of social media. That is Instagram, on Twitter. That is Call Me Maurice on Instagram, at Civil Discord Podcast on Instagram, and then Ajax the Griff, the great Amanda out there, and then Civil Discord Pod on Twitter as well. Both of those are most are handled by Amanda. Anything that's crazy, you best believe it's coming out. It is coming from my thumbs. Crazy things like that. But do all of that. Oh yes, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yes, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch us live. You can watch the video portion of this on there. You can't watch us live just yet. Maybe we'll go live at some point.
You can watch us when we were live. Yeah.
Exactly. Watch us past tense live. Do all of that. Subscribe on YouTube. Again, leave us a comment under the videos. Help us defeat the great YouTube, the great Googles of the world. But do all of that, and we'll be back again with another episode of Civil Discord, your weekly dose of radical curiosity. Until then, y'all be easy.
And stay fierce.